Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market and figure out what is happening today, what we can expect moving forward for the rest of the week. Tomorrow is a big day. Tomorrow we have the FOMC, and I believe Jerome Powell usually speaks at 2:30 Eastern after the FOMC gets released at 2 p.m., which of course dictates whether or not they're raising rates pretty much right now, right? So that'll be a pretty important thing. So we'll kind of slightly go over that, but all in all, as usual, let's go over Tesla in the market. So if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. Again, this is not financial advice and I'm not a financial advisor. And my membership section on YouTube is live if you're interested. The link is down below, where I essentially share my intraday thoughts on Tesla and sometimes a little extra things like Netflix here, for instance. Pretty much live throughout the day as the trading day is happening. So if you're interested, the link is below, $3 a month. But all that being said, jumping into a Tesla, closing just barely in the green, kind of flip-flopping all around. It was down for a while, then it went up to red. Oh, sorry, then it went back up to green. And it did end up closing in the green, which compared to the market itself, closing up 0.4% compared to, for instance, QQQ closing down 0.2% is, decently respectable outperformance. Nothing completely major, but hey, sometimes, you just take what you can get. Now, that's going to be putting us at about $266.50 per share. So what does this mean moving forward? Well, there's a few things, right? There's a few important things to discuss here that I am personally seeing right now, which is what I discussed with my members, which is going to be this post right here. This was the main post right here that I did in the morning. I did actually buy back one of my calls right here. You can see my sold calls pretty much when it was almost near the bottom. Obviously not literally the absolute bottom, but pretty close. I'm actually pretty happy with that. And I'm still not looking to resell it yet because I want to see how tomorrow goes. But most important thing is going to be this post right here, right? This is three things that I'm currently seeing that are potentially forming right here on the 65-minute chart. We'll go over this daily chart after as well. But 65-minute chart is where I'm looking at right now because that dictates pretty much the next kind of week-ish of movement, right? Roughly, maybe 2 weeks, maybe about a week to 2 weeks of movement. Now, what I'm looking at here is as follows, right? Unfortunately, they're all bearish, which sucks to say, but, I definitely think there is still potential for a short-term bounce. I think there's a potential for a bit of a bull trap potentially tomorrow with the FOMC release, and then I think we'll get a sell-off after that. That's kind of my guess right now, but let me go over that. So first and foremost, there's a potential that we have essentially a rounding top, which one thing I wish that we had on TrendSpider. It's a phenomenal thing. By the way, if you want to use it, the link is there below. You can check it out yourself, but I do wish they had a drawing tool unless I'm missing it. But nonetheless, I'll just do it like this. I'll do the old-fashioned way. We have a bit of a rounding top potentially setting up right here. That's number one, right? Which essentially has already set up. That's number one. That one is like, whatever, it's there, we'll see as it goes, but that's obviously a bit of a bearish pattern. Now, one thing that I also see here is potentially a cup and handle. So rounding top roughly, which is, the cup itself. And then of course now, let me redo it just so you guys get a better idea as to how I'm seeing it. It's a little bit scuffy, obviously, but this is the cup itself. And now I think we're potentially forming the handle because we obviously had a bit of a situation here where the cup is formed, right? Made a bit of a rounding top or a cup, inverted cup, of course, which is bearish, right? Came down to the exact same level that we came over here, bounced at pretty much the exact same level so far as well, and holding the exact same level as well. Like we went to the same spot, bounced at the same spot, have the wick almost at the same spot, and the candles are closing at almost the exact same spot. So it's pretty textbook, honestly. And now what I believe is personally we're forming the handle, right? Which of course with the handle would be something like this, right? Give or take, of course. Just a rough demonstration, a rough drawing, of course, right? Just something like this, of course, right? Give or take, right? And the handle will form, and of course, the handle, in my opinion, usually gets up to around the levels of, take it from the swing high, which is somewhere around here, of course, right? And then you bring it to the swing low, which is all the way down here, and the handle will form probably to around 270, which is the 0.5 level, give or take. Can also, of course, only be this 382 level, right? But anywhere between 382 to potentially even as high as the 618, which would be a pretty big bull trap in my opinion, which would be close to the gap fill as well. From up here, you can see close to 274. But, an option here is we get, of course, the handle now forming, which would be that bit of a bounce that I potentially expect somewhere around tomorrow, which would be, in my opinion, a bull trap, which then, of course, would follow up with the sell-off after that, which, thankfully, the sell-off, even if this were to happen, right, let's say we do come up to the 0.5 level, which is this 270 level, which is a level I'll talk about soon that's very important, we would essentially take the bottom of the cup, which in this case is technically the top, but if you were to flip it because it's inverted, right, the bottom of the cup, which is from all the way up here, and you bring it down to somewhere roughly around this level over here where the top of the cup, where the entry of, what I mean. I'm not going to, whatever. I don't know how to describe it. But assuming you go to the 270 level, right, you take this and from the break point of the handle, which is, let's say, a roughly around 270, you measure it, which will be something like this, of course, give or take. It's not perfect, but just to give you a rough idea, that'll bring us down to about 255, right, give or take. which is exactly, if we go on the daily, where the 50-day moving average is sitting, right? Pretty much with, what did I just open? That's not what I want to open. I want to open this, and I want to open this, right? Which is pretty much exactly where the 50-day moving average and the 21 EMA are both sitting right now, right around that mid 250s level, which is exactly where this kind of, very small inverted cup and handle will play out to, which so far lines up with my current projections as to what I expect. Again, I think it's a bit of a bull trap. Ultimately, I do think that it'll have a more of a sell-off, and I think we'll come down to somewhere around this level, maybe slightly overshoot it to get close to gap filling this just shy of just under 250, right, which is around 248 over here and a half. Somewhere around these levels wouldn't shock me if we come down there, and that's where we retrace, maybe go sideways for a while. And then from there, hopefully build the next base to move up even higher. That's a possibility, right? That's number one. And the final thing I'm seeing, let me just double check, making sure I'm not remembering or misremembering rather, is going to be, let me remove this for now, potential, let me remove these lines here, island top pattern, right? So, okay, so let's go ahead and go over here, right? So we had a bit of an island formation here, where an island formation is essentially, it's pretty simple, right? This little situation with these little bars here looks like an island because it's completely isolated, right? You had a gap down, you had a sideways correction, or just sideways action really, and then you have a gap up, and then you create this little bit of an island where you have both a gap down and a gap up, and kind of isolates this little situation here, right? We're potentially looking like we may form something like that here. Of course, something pretty severe would have to happen. Obviously, we would need a pretty significant sell-off pre or post markets, but technically it's not out of the possibilities. I think this one is the least likely to form, but something just to consider, just so you're aware of it potentially being on the horizon, where if we get a massive sell-off and we just gap down and we come down to, like, let's say 255 on a massive gap down, which again would be a pretty sizable gap down. I don't see it happening, but it's not impossible. It's about a 4% gap down, right? That would essentially create this would be the most bearish one as well, by the way. If this were to happen, I think we were going to go a lot lower than 255, but it would essentially create a pretty massive island top formation, right? We have a gap up, then we have a gap down. It's now isolated exactly the same way this little situation here was, just on a larger scale. And then, of course, I think that'll be pretty bearish, assuming it holds, of course. And if it does, that will be very bearish, because you can see what happened off of this small little island gap up formation or pattern or whatever. Massive rally, right? Obviously, it wasn't just this causing it, but it was definitely part of the equation. So imagine if we have one this large right here instead, right? It'll be not so great, and I think at the very least we'll come back down to somewhere around the low 220s or 200s rather. So keep that in mind. That's also a possibility. I think that's the least likely, but if it were to happen, also the most bearish outcome as well. So those are the main things I'm personally looking at, and unfortunately all of them are bearish, right? The RSI is not looking phenomenal as well, right? It's looking a little bit weak for my liking, right? It's just making, it's going a lot lower than the actual chart is overall relative to, let's say, this movement over here as well. So it's overall looking weak. The MACD is kind of trying to cross to be slightly more bullish, but it's still overall bearish, and I wouldn't be surprised if it comes up, the green line touches the red line, and just simply bounces back down from it as well. That wouldn't shock me whatsoever. On top of that, moving over to the daily, well, that's the weekly, right? This is still a possible move, by the way. Don't forget, this is still possible. If this were to happen, that's very bearish. But on the daily, we're still potentially in this little channel that we talked about yesterday, the two blue lines. Like I said, definitely want to watch out for this. And that's exactly what happened today. We came pretty much right down to the line, retested it, bounced off not only the blue line, which is the bottom of the channel, but we also came down to about that 260 to 262 level, which is a pretty crucial level, because that is where roughly we found some rejection over here. You can see a lot of wicks around the 260 level here. We came up to that general vicinity, constantly got rejected. Then we found that as a support here, right? Even back here, you can see constant rejection and support, and just really trading volume for the most part. So, we did actually bounce at a pretty crucial level here, for, again, just a typical support resistance play, which in this case it was a support, and of course it being the bottom of this channel, the blue line, right? So keep that in mind as well. So that's a good place to bounce, if there was a place to bounce for Tesla, and have some hope for the bulls to potentially still go higher. That's still very much a possibility. It's just, I don't think it's a likely possibility for now. I do think it'll happen. That's just not yet, especially after this beautiful move we just had already. And I think there's a bit more cool off as well ahead of us. On the bright side, though, we do have a lot of volume right below us, which is also where kind of roughly we're bouncing. So there's a lot of support down below here. So it'll be a hard move to break through this overall level. We have a lot of volume. We have the 50-day moving average. We have the 21 EMA, right? We have a potential gap fill bounce play as well. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of work for the bears to do to really bring Tesla down, especially if they want to bring it down back to like the low 200s. There's a lot of work to do, but it's not impossible. And just something to consider, of course, right? That's kind of what I am looking at and seeing right now. But for now, I'll move down to that massive volume area at 255-ish, where the 50-day and the 21 EMA is. would not be surprising to me whatsoever, really. Issue with that is the fact that if that were to happen, we will be falling out of this overall blue channel, which can be a little bit concerning. It could be a false breakdown. Obviously, that's always a possibility, but that's where things also start getting a little bit questionable because, okay, we found great support here, it's massive volume, of course, etc. Great area for support, potential gap fill, phenomenal area to bounce, but we're out of the channel. Which one outweighs which? You know what I mean? So you always want to take these things into consideration. That's why trading is not just as easy as, oh, it crossed this line, just do this and you're a millionaire. It's never that easy. That's why having a high or a good risk versus reward tolerance and understanding what you're doing and how you're getting these positions and entries, exits, and things like that is very, very crucial. So understand, obviously everyone has their own version of that and what they, what the risk tolerance is. Now, another thing to consider that I'm a little bit hesitant about is, first of all, the market itself is looking a little bit wobbly, right? Nice little candle today, though, I will admit, a QQQ and SPY. Not a bad looking candle overall, but we're still below the 50-day moving average on both of them. And, it's looking a little bit questionable. The MACD is flipping bearish here on both of them, which isn't great as well. And with FOMC tomorrow, we'll see what that actually plays out to. I still think there'll be a bit of a bull trap personally, but we'll see how it plays out. Now, usually FOMC is a bit of a delayed reaction. So I've seen it many times where it starts bullish and let's say it happens at 2, Jerome Powell speaks from 2:30 to 3 or whatever. And then the rest of the day seems kind of bullish and it's overall rallying. But many times I've seen it the following day or the day after. So Thursday or Friday, it just ends up doing the complete opposite. I've seen that many, many times. I've seen a lot of traps from this. So just take it for what it's worth. Obviously, be cautious in my opinion. That's just, of course, what I am thinking. And the final thing to discuss very quickly is going to be the VIX, right? The VIX is still just not really finding any real true signs of life. If it ever breaks back into the 20s, that's going to be very bearish for the markets. A lot of volatility is to be expected. But the thing that's extra concerning is the fact that we're not really finding any volatility in a month of September, where it's usually the month, and October as well, where usually this is where there's a lot of volatility, right? It's a horrible month for the market. You can see, you can't even see because I'm here. The bottom right here, SPY, QQQ, all September is just atrocious months, right? Horrible, horrible months. But it's not been that bad. It's really not been that bad so far. There's, of course, still half the month remaining, but, it's not been that bad so far, in all honesty, right? It's been pretty tame for the most part. So there's a lot of volatility still missing. So is it coming? Is it not? That's something else to consider and be cautious about as well, right? But all in all, that's kind of what I am seeing. Option flow, I looked at it with my members earlier. It was looking kind of tame. It's looking a little bit different now, actually. So let's take a look at it one more time. It changes pretty frequently. This is what it looked like not that long ago. Right here, check this out, right? This is what it looked like just 2 hours ago. And now look at this, completely different. So, let's take a look at it one more time. You can see short-term bullish calls. I think these are the people playing that potential short-term bounce tomorrow coming, that little bit of a bull trap. And then people with some massive premium, massive red circles coming in, betting on, a little bit of a safer play. It's farther out, right? If you know how options work, right? So farther out usually means safer. And it's pretty close to the strike as well. Nothing too crazy, nothing completely out of the money or anything like that. But, they're betting on a bit more downside and pretty massive circles as well. And it's a bit farther out. So it's more of a slightly longer term play, but short term, you can see a lot of green circles here. And then as we go out, it's getting more and more bearish. So short term looks like there's a bit of a bounce potential, but a slightly medium, maybe term-ish, potentially a little bit more pain ahead. But that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm thinking. And that's what I am saying. So let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. Hopefully I'm not speaking too fast. I feel like I might have this video. There was just a lot on my mind to discuss here, honestly. So if you have to play it on a slower speed, then please do so. But either way, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.